Welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to show you how I've been using CarlinKit devices in my last two cars. The first one was a 2019 Seat Leon hatchback with a fairly decent media system. The only challenge I had was that in order to use Carplay, it required to always plug the USB cable. Moreover, because of that, the cell phone obviously had to be seated in the middle console. And while I did have a charging box, it bothered me to always have to place the mobile there and plug the cable on top of that. So this is when I started doing research of what could help, and in no time stumbled over the CarlinKit solutions. I decided to give the CarlinKit version 3.0 a try, given it was listed compatible with my car and seemed to provide just what I wanted to get CarPlay converted to wireless over the air. Plus, there didn't seem to be any great alternatives, so that was an easy choice. At the cost of only $90, including shipping, I had ordered it directly from the manufacturer because at the time I could not find it anywhere here in Germany. It took a couple of weeks until it arrived, but was pretty easy to set up. The only strange thing was how to update the firmware because there was no manual included. Over time, I figured through some web research that the CarlinKit adapter spins up a wireless LAN that you can connect to using your mobile. And once you did, you could access a special IP address to access the web interface of the adapter, which then allowed to configure and download updates for it. So let's have a look at how this thing looked like. So you can see there are different versions. I had this one, version 3. It had a USB-A connector. Here you could charge your mobile or have the wired CarPlay still. And then here you would go into the media port of the car. Here you can see how it looks like. So after the setup and doing updates once in a while, I was pretty happy with that for several years until at some point it just stopped working. And what was weird was that it literally just stopped. No LED lit anymore, and even with CarlinKit support, we could not revive it, even diagnosing it with a PC. And accidentally, this was also the time when I considered to buy actually a bigger car. So initially I didn't push to replace the device. Then it turned out that anyway, the CarlinKit adapter would not work in the new car I was going to buy. So in the discussions with the support, me asking all those questions, CarlinKit made me a great offer. They said instead of replacing the old adapter, because obviously there would be a return shipment to China, they would discount me another adapter that would work for both cars. And they made the offer for the T-Box device. Now, at the time, I had no idea what that was. So again, I did my research and found out what that was. I could confirm that indeed both car models were supported and that it could do so much more. Like converting wired to wireless was just one of the many use cases. The T-Box was like a fully featured media box you can install apps on, has memory and storage on board, and is still reasonably compact. Finally, I decided to give it a try and took the better Plus model as it had more storage for just a little more cost. By the way, depending on where you live, the T-Box might actually be sold as an AI box, like is the case here in Germany. Just search for CarlinKit and go by the housing design, and of course, best to validate the model numbers. So let's look where it's to be found. So that's actually the T-Box. That is the CarlinKit adapter, and there are some more customized solutions. So here are the, actually they have rebranded it now. It's even on their website it's called AI Box, but when I bought it, it was actually called the T-Box. So let's see which version I have. You need to be careful because there are different models with different amount of memory, but also runs on different Android versions. So I have the older version. It ran on Android 11. And that's also important when you later on upgrade the firmware, because obviously you cannot upgrade with the wrong OS operating system installed. See, in the URL it actually still says T-Box, whereas in the it still says T-Box, but in the previous page, weird, it's called AI Box. So yeah, apparently just rebranded and not all the details changed. So when you look at the tech specs, always look at the model number. And it's a quad-core Cortex ARM processor, 4 GB ROM, DDR4 RAM, if that says anything to you, different Wi-Fi frequencies supported and standards. And here it says, okay, what exactly is supported, which ColorOS, and so on. So my recommendation will be to look at the compatibility lists of the car models. That's very important to not, if you order something from China, then it doesn't fit, yeah, you're screwed. So by now, if you search Amazon for the CarlinKit, just generally speaking, without specific search terms, you will find different solutions. Really make sure that whatever model you are picking actually fits to your car. Another criteria would be the connection type. Is it USB-A, USB-C? I think it's just a cable, but yeah, maybe you want to get the right package from the get-go. And then sometimes the devil sits in the details. We can see, for example, here a T-Box, or they call it now AI box, as I said, with Android version 11 and 3 GB of RAM, 32 GB of memory. Whereas then, for double the price, basically, you have the Android 12 version with 4 GB RAM on 64 GB of memory, not memory, but storage. And I do think, and I think you saw that probably on the, or you will see that later in my video about the firmware upgrade that the T-Box has on the back side. Which one is the back side? I think here you have actually two slots. One is the microSD slot, and there is another slot for a SIM card or for LTE or 4G. And you really have to check the specs if you want to use that. Because in my case, I don't use that because my media system has already, if you wanted that, if you wanted to use that like a mobile connection itself. I personally just use the mobile phone and mirror it on the screen. So that's why I don't need that. But yeah, you may choose otherwise. So this T-Box Plus I got last year, and just recently I thought, okay, as with the experience of the previous CarlinKit adapter, it might be helpful at some point to update it, given it's actually a very complicated or not sophisticated device, let's say, much more so than the previous CarlinKit adapter. I thought, okay, let's see if there is a new firmware for it. Maybe there are some updates to make it more smooth. And in my case, I even had a problem, so I wanted to see if they by now fixed it. So normally, before you upgrade any such device, really think about, okay, do you really have to do it? Because there is always this risk that I also explained that you could brick it. Yeah, I mean, anything happening during a firmware upgrade usually results in a non-functional device. Some devices are well designed, so you can actually recover them. But I've come across some cases in my life and career where, yeah, electronics would just stop, and there is no way to recover. So in order to prevent that, really have a good case for why you would actually upgrade a device. And even CarlinKit, the manufacturer, has a banner on their webpage stating that you shouldn't update it unless you really have specific issues and problems. They say that the original device version is probably the best that you can have. They claim that it's car specific. I doubt that because for sure they have standard model numbers. They don't really differentiate I mean, they have a compatibility list, but they don't differentiate the model. So I have my doubts on that statement. But yeah, the reason they stated is obvious, that every firmware update has potential risks. So they just warn you about that. And my reason for doing it was certain functionalities were not really working properly. In the past, this was also true of the CarlinKit adapters of the version 3 and 4 that I had. Um, so take this as a piece of real life warning that in fact this can break your device should anything unexpected happen, like power loss or malfunction, any bugs in the software and so on. So anyway, because I did have an issue with my T-Box Plus, I decided it might be time to check. And the issue is that for whatever reason, so since the time I got it, whenever I connect the device, and really I just use it to get CarPlay work wireless over the air, it shows me a weird Wi-Fi hotspot dialog, where according to support you don't actually need Wi-Fi, but still it asks me, the driver, for many confirmations until Bluetooth finally connects. I've recommended ever since to fix that issue because it distracts the driver too much. So now let's see if it got fixed by now by updating the firmware. So once more, only follow the instructions if you have a good reason to do so, because that means you are willing to take the risk of a brick device with hassles and potential cost for shipping back, etc. So to upgrade, the first step, of course, is to figure what device you have. So check your order number and so on for the exact model. Is it a normal one or a plus, like in my case? And then go to the settings dialog of your in-car media system to identify what version is running on it. So in my case, it's an X9 SC138, and in the order confirmation, I could see that it's an Android 11 operating system on it, and that's important to know for the next step. Then the next step is to go to CarlinKit website, to the downloads. Actually, not here, but in the support page. And here it's really important to know what version you have, because you don't want to flash the wrong version, which could result in a malfunctioning device, obviously. So, so as I mentioned earlier, here, so SC138. Yeah, that's a bit confusing here. The SC, this number here is actually what you need, SC138, T-Box Plus version 138. And it had the timestamp here of 2022, October the 1st. And yeah, that's a bit confusing. I think it's a bit unexpected because wait, why there's T-Box pluses for both Android 12 and 11, and why do you have the same version 138 on both? See, here it says 138 upgrade file, here it says 138 upgrade file. So you really want to make sure that you know which operating system is installed before you go any further. So in my case, I've concluded that the version pertains to the target hardware platform, maybe the firmware programming specific to the operating system, and then the what is called here the update date is what describes the actual firmware version in the sense of how recent the firmware build is. At least now I'd expect this firmware to be like 4 months younger than the one I've been having, with chances to address the issue that I have. that I have seen. And because that was a bit confusing, I also double checked really. I didn't want to break the device, so I went to the FAQ, and there is somewhere a note. Let's see where it is. Where is that? Here, that one. So this error message, just by, just by stumbling over the term illegal, which I think is just a wrong translation, but I was just wondering, okay, what that means. And then finally I found this note for the T-Box Plus, Europe, North America, and Japanese versions. And there actually you find a very detailed instruction of what you need to look at and what is really expected. So here you can actually find the instructions that in the end I then followed. And very interesting also here, there was actually a change log, which is really great, because then I could actually follow how high is the chances that the issue that I've been witnessing is actually solved. Unfortunately, it wasn't fully possible because there's only the latest 2 firmware versions are described with the changelog. There is a Google Drive attached, but I actually didn't bother to go there. So the good part of this illegal node, I think, is that it actually means that the manufacturer has added a check to reduce the risk of damage. So while this message is a bit confusing, I think, illegal manufacturer update, it just says that the firmware that you are trying to install is the wrong one, basically. So it actually prevents the risk of damage. So yeah, the page is pretty hidden here on the homepage. So I really can recommend, if you're really planning this step, to find this page that is specific to your device and really read it before you go any further. And in the changelog for my specific model, besides many car-specific optimizations, I also found things like optimize the link with the original car, fix the optimization of Bluetooth, phone query, fix the landline number, cannot find the name problem, solve the desktop in the click on the music up and down, the song appears yellow box problems. So pretty difficult to figure out what it actually means, but I finally decided that there are many improvements potentially, so I wanted to try it out. Just here to quickly show you the error that I've been always receiving. It's failed to open Wi-Fi hotspot, please enable it manually. But again, CarlinKit support said that you don't actually need Wi-Fi. It seems to be the hotspot that you can enable on the box itself, but I don't actually need that because the wireless connection actually works with Bluetooth. So why is that error message coming? I suggested to fix it by just waiting for just the right interfaces to be up and running before actually connecting. But so far it wasn't fixed, unfortunately. So then I started reading the details and wanted to go ahead. And then I found the next challenge here in this section. They talk about using a TF card to put the firmware on. And even though I think I'm pretty versed in all current technologies, I didn't recognize what that is, a TF card. But after a quick research, turns out that you can interchange TF and microSD cards using the same reader because they actually meet the same standard. So it seems that in China maybe the TF card is more common, but over here it's really a microSD card. So I usually have a microSD card somewhere in a, I don't know, any kind of camera or whatever device attached to the PC with a card reader, formatted with a FAT32 file system. And you can do that if you're not familiar with how to do that. There is an application called Computer Management, and there, I mean, it's with Windows 10 and 11, and even before there was this application. It's core to the operating system, and under the section Storage Disk Management, just select the right disk, the right volume of the microSD card, right-click the volume, and then select Format. I believe normally FAT32 should be the default. Yeah, I typically give it a name so that when you have several devices attached to the PC, you can distinguish which one you actually formatted. So I gave it the name of T-Box to easily identify it later. Here on the picture, you can just see roughly the size of the T-Box in comparison to a very small microSD card. So you can see it's actually quite compact, and you can put it to the middle console wherever your car has some place to put it. The T-Box Plus has a USB-C connector, but you can actually interchange it with a USB-A should your car not have USB-C. So once you formatted the microSD card, just keep it empty, download the respective firmware for your device, and as it says here in the file name, actually, please unzip, so extract that one. There should be a file called update.zip inside, and I think there are some screenshots. I think these screenshots are also inside the file, and really copy the file update.zip to the empty microSD card. Don't unzip that one, because the system will expect the file really called update.zip. Then the next step is to insert the microSD card into the T-Box or your other device. It may actually vary. I'm not sure if all the devices can be updated with a microSD card. Just trying to remember on the CarlinKit adapter, the version 3, and I believe also the version 4 afterwards, you just plug them with USB. Because I don't think they have any slots for cards. So this is how it looks like once it's inserted. So it's a typical SD slot. So when you enter it, there is this click and it snaps in. And yeah, afterwards you will have to use your fingernail to really push it inside to extract it again. So with the microSD card inserted and the T-Box connected to the media system, to your car, just start the media system, and then typically the red LED will light up first as usual, and then during the upgrade, and I'll show you how that looks like, it will start blinking, the blue one. So once the media system started, it found the update.zip on the microSD card and prompts you to start the upgrade. And here you have to confirm yes. There will be a countdown timer. If you don't answer within those 16 or 17 seconds, then it will actually move on and just boot the system normally. Then there is this warning that it will take 3 to 5 minutes. In my case, it actually ran longer. I don't remember exactly, between 8 and 10 minutes, I think it was. Maybe it was because the microSD card I used is actually a very, very old class. It's not one of the latest and faster microSD cards. So that might be the reason. Yeah, so then the file is being copied. I guess the update.zip is being copied onto the system because it has memory, it has storage. And then I guess for performance reasons, it's being extracted on there. So that part is pretty fast. And then the next part, file is being upgraded. That in my case ran really long. You can see this goes really slower. Now the blue light is blinking, suggesting that now it's actually the update is running. Yeah, so that took a while, and then at some point there was this message, okay, upgrade success, system will reboot. At this point in time, you should remove the microSD card from the T-box, because otherwise you will see the same thing that happened to me, in that it will actually show at some point the same message again, right? I mean, so I either click no and then remove the microSD card. There is no harm doing that this way. So yeah, in my case, as the message says, the upgrade was successful. It went just fine. It took longer than expected, but I really think it was probably the slow microSD card. Now, in terms of improvements that I observed, first of all, the error message about the Wi-Fi hotspot is not gone, unfortunately. I think it got a bit less frequent, but that might be just subjective, so I need to observe it a bit more. But now that they fix actually issues regularly with those updates, I can, and I know the procedure by now, so I can just keep checking until they maybe address this issue in their backlog. I mean, they are supporting so many cars, so it could be that maybe it's even car specific. Who knows? So I'll just give it a try once more at some point. One very good improvement that I noticed is the overall stability of the wireless connection. There are moments when, at least in the car that I currently have, there is a 360 camera that observes the surroundings of the car. And once that camera is actually switching on, it interrupts the media to show basically the camera picture on the screen. And before the update, there sometimes were actually hiccups to resume media afterwards. Well, it wasn't so noticeable for me at the time. I didn't perceive this as a problem, but now that it's actually better, it is really notable. So I really appreciate that at least the update has brought something new, something better, because the original issue, the rationale why I did it, actually didn't help. Another thing I noticed is that the navigation of the CarPlay interface switched from originally you had to basically toggle the buttons on the screen, but now in the new update it's actually a mouse pointer. And I'm a bit torn on this improvement because on one hand, navigating the buttons was a bit nagging, right, until you really hit the right button. But on the other hand, a mouse pointer, especially while driving, can be pretty distracting, as you may have a hard time positioning it exactly over the different buttons on the screen. So I really don't, I'm undecided, to be honest, on what is better. But yeah, now I have the update, so now I'm going with it, obviously. So I hope you liked the video. I hope it helped you in your maybe quest of changing your wired CarPlay or Android Auto to a wireless system, or maybe you had the wish to just have a media system and display it on your screen, maybe just mirroring the mobile phone on the display, or maybe you were looking for somehow an application that allows you to download like a media player and watch some videos on screen. That all is obviously possible with this T-Box, but it really depends on which car you have. So go to the CarlinKit website and check their products, check the compatibility lists. I had a very good exchange with their support also. So if you have specific questions, if you cannot find your car but would like to have such a solution, I can really recommend them. They are usually pretty fast in answering, and even the shipment, even though it comes from China, it's really in a decent lead time. So really happy with the solution was also happy with the previous version, but yeah, as I said, it got bricked or whatever, or just stopped working at some point. So not too happy about it. But then they actually made this offer to me, which was really an elegant solution. Really loved how that they offered this to me, and so in the end, it wasn't expensive. It was really inexpensive to make the switch, and now I feel I have a very flexible solution that potentially can also work in my next car. But really, I hope that my next car, will appreciate the fact that we are in 2023 and that wireless CarPlay should really be standard. I really don't understand how some manufacturers still require you to have a cable with your mobile. I mean, there are so many wireless protocols by now that this shouldn't be required, really. So again, thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, and hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye bye.